Good morning. I am Samson Lardy Anyenini.
And I am Emefa.
Together, we welcome you to Joy's Change Speaker Series on Newsfile.
Elections are upon us again as the EC offers those who have turned 18 since December 2020 the opportunity to register to vote in December.
It is a high-stakes elections as Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia leads the NPP's quest to make history by breaking the 8. No party has done more than 8 years in the Fourth Republic.
And the NDC's John Dramani Mahama seeks a comeback to rescue the economy from the downward spiral. The season of mudslinging sets in with the two major parties trading accusations.
The NDC does not believe the NPP won the last elections fairly. Its relations with the EC has been the worst ever.
And the NPP would like to avoid a situation where it doesn't have majority in parliament and could not produce a speaker.
Tensions rise, but the media is not exactly trusted to do a good job. We will be right back to chart a path to ensuring credible and peaceful elections.
The stability of the Fourth Republic depends heavily on your resolve to maintain the sanctity of your profession and your independence as the Fourth Estate. If I may say so, as we celebrate this landmark anniversary, let it be a call to all journalists to rise to the occasion, to uphold the values that have defined your noble profession, and to hopefully continue to be the beacon of hope and accountability our nation needs. Your association's inception came at a very pivotal time as Ghana stood on the verge of defining its future, breaking free from colonial domination. Your association, predating even our nation's independence, became the crucible within which the fervent hopes and aspirations of a people were nurtured and expressed. Even before the formation of your association, nationalists like J.B. Dankwa, Kwame Nkrumah, Kofi Bacha, Eric Heyman, Kofi Bakun, T.D. Bafo, Kofi Bedu, amongst others, stood at the vanguard of the struggle, wielding the might of the pen and the unwavering spirit of truth as they used their voices for advocacy. Dreams of a liberated and thriving Ghana were expressed through purposeful writing and careful dissemination on the pain of punishment. These were patriots, men who were inspired and motivated by the ideals of a free and prosperous nation. Mr. Chairman, today, as we traverse the sands of time and reminisce the jubilation of independence through the trials of military regimes, through sometimes rancorous, other times harmonious ebb and flow of democracy, we find the essence of journalism tested and exalted. The courage, the sacrifice, the unwavering commitment of your members have not only chronicled our nation's history, but they have been instrumental in shaping its discourse. Insightful and courageous citizens like Cameron Dodu, PAV Ansa, Kweku Bakun, Betsy Pratt, Kwame Karikari, Kojo Yanka, Christine Agri, Elvis Aye, Sam Ade Clark, Cabral Blay Amihir, Elizabeth Ohene, Heronata, Kwame Amamo, Mike Egan, Vada Kranti Asante, Giftia Fenidaze, and many others have paved the way for many today. We observe a landscape altered by the winds of change. The once famous united front of objectivity and patriotism appears to some fragmented by the device of partisanship and the shadows of materialism. The noble quest for truth now competes with the allure of political patronage and its material rewards, a phenomenon which, if I may say so, threatens the sanctity of your independence, the Fourth Estate. Yet, this is the period when the vigilance of the Fourth Estate is most needed. As we stand on the precipice of yet another electoral milestone, which in my view is the most consequential. The ethos, the echoes of past violence, the whispers of disenfranchisement looms. And I don't think anyone needs reminding that the conduct of the electoral exercise, together with its outcome, is so important that the nation cannot afford bias and unprofessional coverage of it by members of your profession. I wish, Mr. Chairman, I could be more confident that the coverage will be professional, but I'm afraid I can't, given the rather unserious way in which another very important national issue, the most egregious abuse of the rights of millions whose livelihood has been decimated completely by galamsey operations, has been treated by your profession. I don't know whether you are exhausted and indeed frustrated by the shameful lack of decisive action from the authorities to your interventions. All I know is that your association's pen, which is your weapon, has gone eerily silent on this all-important matter. I would have liked to see a more concerted and sustained action from you. Sadly, that has not been the case. Galamsey doesn't make the headlines anymore, and yet the country is experiencing the ravages of this terrible phenomenon every day. The alarming increase in kidney and liver diseases, the increase in children born with deformities, and the alarming infant mortality rates in the areas affected by galamsey activities appear not to merit your sustained concern. What a shame. What a pity. As journalists, the times we live in beckon you to remember your purpose, your power, and your responsibility. Let me just say this: the price of your continued silence is too grave to fathom. Mr. Chairman, it is in this moment of reflection and anticipation that the immortal words of Ephraim Amos' composition, Yen Ara Assassini, resound with unparalleled relevance. The composition resonates today deeply. Its message of patriotism, stewardship, and unity echoes the ideals that all of us must champion. As guardians of the public conscience, you are called to rise above the frail, to champion the cause of truth, justice, and national unity. The perceived weaponization of state agencies against opponents, the creeping assault on the freedom of the press, the perceived lack of trust of the dispensation of justice, and the pathetic lack of accountability in the protection of the public press. This is a time, ladies and gentlemen, for patriots to find their voices. This is a time to be fearless and courageous. We cannot and must not compromise on our defense of the national interest. Trust, they say, but verify. And when you have your who, what, where, why, and how, do not be afraid to publish the truth. It is better to tell the truth that offends than look on timidly, sheepishly, and cowardly as the case in the country's interest is captured for the benefit of the few. The success of our attempt at a democratic order, Mr. Chairman, will depend crucially on how free our press is. In the words of Walter Cronkite, I quote, "Freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy."
Nicely for Joy Chain Speaker Series on ensuring credible elections, the role of the media. Some fears expressed there by Sam Jonah, but how exactly are these fears justified in the face of improved press freedom rankings, and what must be done to get the media to deliver credible and peaceful elections?
Exactly, Emefa, and Sam Jonah is not alone. It gets scary seeing we are in the era of misuse of AI, disinformation, misinformation, recklessness, self-censored journalism, and pure propaganda in the name of journalism.
Well, we'll get to engage our guests shortly, and thankfully, Kwesi Pinti, one of the main speakers for today, is already with us in the studios, and he chaired this particular event and also has an article in the Mirror today, definitely on press freedom, amongst others. I'm sure we'll get to interact with him first before we start the talk this morning. But really, listening to Sir Sam Jonah, I'm curious. You were at that event. You seem to agree. Do you agree?
You chaired it. I actually heard you agreeing with him.
You agree?
Yes, indeed, I chaired the function, which was the launch of the 75th anniversary of the GJA. And as chair, I had said in my very short acceptance speech that the 75th anniversary should be used for reflection, for deep reflection into our profession and craft, to ensure that, we're doing the right thing, etc. And then came Sir Sam Jonah's delivery, which was indeed spot on in every direction. He sitting there and listening, and the atmosphere in that room, it was electrifying. You could see that he changed the day's narrative. I'm sure to launch the 75th anniversary, it was going to be, we've done well, look at us, 75 years. But then he came in with a very critical, well-crafted, well-thought-out speech and presentation. And the main things to take from it, in my view, are that we throw about some of these concepts, like press freedom. And when you go through our history, especially since independence, when the state, or more precisely, the government of the day, controlled the press. I mean, before 1992, basically what we would call the Ghana media was controlled by the Ministry of Information in every way. And when one day we were able to discuss in full, I'm sure some of the stories you've heard, that even as at GBC, bulletins were being read, ministers would ring me to say, I don't like that news, drop it. And when I was acting editor of the Graphic for a short period before I became editor of the Mirror, I can tell you that purely about, now I've done the calculation, about a quarter of editorials published at that time came from the castle. They will bring the thing to you and say, this must come tomorrow. So one day we'll tell that story, but let's concentrate on what Sam Jonah said, which to me captures the
we have long come from that era. And so to have Sam Jonah express the fear that the media not even deliver on credible, peaceful elections, and to have you, who was our vanguard at the National Media Commission, join him in agreeing that this is the situation, that's concerning.
It is concerning precisely because the point I'm making that when we came post-1992, especially post-1997, when the multiplicity of media emerged and all that, we mistook quantity for quality. So now, instead of the government or the state controlling everything, you have private people and all that, but who are these private interests? Says Sam Jonah said something and I wrote it down, which is just the two words, national interest. So it's a different thing. Now you look at the landscape.
Right. So just please hold it there. We'll return and have a full presentation from him, and then we will also have questions. Please, if you have any questions and contributions as to how you think that the media can deliver on credible and peaceful elections, share them with me and Emefa here, and we will clearly share them with our guests. Now, today, we will have Audrey Gajepo, Professor of Communication Studies, School of Information and Communication Studies, University of Ghana. Bishop Dr. Suzanne Enti. She's the COO and head of Legal Action Chapel International and head of school Dominion Christian Academy. Caroline Anipa is media and communications consultant.
And we'll also have, of course, Nana Kwesi Jana Painting is a consultant in communication, media and culture. We'll also have Sheikh Arimiya Shaibu, is a member of the National Peace Council, Kodeo, and Chief Imam's Advisory Board and spokesperson for the National Chief Imam. And of course, George Sapong is Executive Secretary, National Media Commission. Will also be a speaker today here on the George Ching Speaker Series. We'll start off.
So, let's begin with Professor Audrey Gajepo. She's a professor of communication studies at the Department of Communication Studies and former dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. She has more than 30 solid years of experience in teaching, research, and advocacy, primarily on media, gender development, and governance issues, and some 35 years of experience as a media practitioner. She obtained a doctorate degree in African Studies from the University of Birmingham, UK, and Master of Arts in Communications from Brigham Young University, Utah, USA, and a Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Ghana. She has served on numerous boards and committees within and outside the University of Ghana, and is currently chairperson of the board of the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghana. She is also patron to Alliance for Women in Media and serves on a number of other boards, including Tema International School and the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you so very much, Professor Audrey Gajepo. Please, let's hear you in the next 10, 15 minutes.
Thank you, Samson, and good morning to everybody listening. This is a really important discussion. I listened intently to what Sir Sam Jonah had to say. I listened to the exchange between you, Emefa, and Nana Jana Painting. And there is a certain sense, I would say, of trepidation. I would say a little bit of pessimism about the state of affairs in Ghana. But I like to think of myself as an optimist and to look at the glass being half full rather than half empty. And that will be my starting point. And in doing that, I want to say that there's a lot at stake here because this is our 9th time since we started our democratic journey. And it's resulted, and this is an optimist in me, pointing out that it's resulted in 3 transitions, successful transitions of power from one political party to the other of our 2 dominant parties. We wish we had more parties, but the reality is that we have 2 dominant parties that keep alternating power. Still, what it tells us is that we do have some semblance of democracy, and we are using the democratic process to alternate power peacefully, even though, of course, I must note that our elections, while largely peaceful, have been contested. We've had 2 court cases, and each of the parties, 2 dominant parties, have had a court to challenge the results. It's also been marred by disturbing incidents of violence and misbehavior. So those are challenges, but they are challenges that we have to try and overcome. not to sort of sink into a deep well of depression, because we are half there. Democracy, as we see, even looking at the more so-called more mature democracies, is always a work in process. And it's always subject to possibilities of reversals. So we must be vigilant. And that's where the media comes in, because they are part of the stakeholders that ensure that we have quality, credible elections. They are just one of many, but they are an important stakeholder. I like when Anna Jana Penton made the point, because it's one of the things I wanted to flag, that we have a really vast media landscape. We have now more than 700 FM stations, hundreds of TV stations, print publications, and of course, a wide variety of online publications. And so it is clear that the media is not a monolith, and so that there are lots of challenges, because there are going to be bad actors in the media, but also good actors in the media. What we again ought to be pressing for and supporting is the kind of media architecture where the vast majority, particularly those who reach the vast number of our people, are credible. As for the bad media people, they'll be there. But if the good media outweighs the bad media, then of course they'll be able to tackle the task that they have to take in order to ensure that our elections are credible and that our democracy stays on course. We know from the experience of other countries the kinds of roles that the media can play in derailing democracy. And again, whilst you can't blame only the media, there have been instances where the media have been seen as one of the main reasons why the violence was escalated in parts of certain countries, etc., etc. So it's important to sort of have those nuances and to remember that the media matter during elections for several reasons. First of all, they have a public service duty to contribute to free and fair, credible elections. They have a contribution to make. They have a contribution to help mitigate tensions and contestations and violence that has come to be associated with our elections, unfortunately. And how do they do that? They have an informational and educational role. I mean, without the media, and broadly defined, including now even social media, we wouldn't have enough voter education, for example. So they're a vehicle, a platform through which voters can be about parties, programs, elections, so that the voters behave like citizens are expected to behave, have informed information in order to make informed decisions. Whether or not they do that is another matter. But at least the media is there to contribute to this process, informing the electorate also about the electoral system and the arrangements, also being that platform that can be used as a vehicle for debate. And crucially also, and we've seen it in several elections, they also play a key role in reporting on election results, and then of course their surveillance watchdog role, which they play, reporting on how the elections are going, even on election day. And in fact, I recall a lecture that Dr. Farijan, who was our former electoral commissioner, gave many years ago about how the media has become very crucial in the sense that since they are able to report on election day in particular what is going wrong so that it can be corrected. And we see instances of responsiveness on the part of the electoral authorities cooperating with the media. I really hope that that kind of collaboration continues. They of course, sometimes scrutinize, well, not sometimes, they do scrutinize candidates, parties, their agenda, and comment on it, and take them on if they think that, there are certain things in their agenda or certain behaviors that ought to be called out. And of course, and we've seen, again, a lot of reports leading up to the elections, them reporting or giving voice to concerns about the electoral arrangements, especially when they work with CSOs. And the accountability role also is an important one also. So they bring transparency, and that's important. They build voter confidence in the process in the ways in which they report. Okay, they can build, or they can undermine the process in the ways that they report so that people may not even go to the polls. Our last elections, I read that the voter turnout was 80%. That is fantastic. How do you maintain this voter turnout? Because if people are pessimistic, if people are disillusioned, they won't go to the polls. We'll have a poor voter turnout. And I think that the media has a role in helping to encourage voter turnout. And so in the end, what does the media do as an industry? They're a collective pressure group on the election authorities, on the candidates, on the political parties. And they must set the right agenda, the right tone in how they report on these things, even if they're reporting on wrongdoing. How do you set the tone so that it can be corrected, so that it's fair and balanced? And it becomes even more important, the media's ability to play these roles that I have set out when elections are close as they were the last time we went to the polls, and as I imagine they're going to be this time around. We're going to have to rely on the media to give us a sense of really what is going on. As for the political parties, because they are in close contestation, they are likely to confuse us as to the facts of what's going on. But we think that the media is an honest broker. The media is an independent observer, and perhaps we can go to them. Although, again, my caveat is that it's not every media organization that can be credible. We need people, citizens, to say, there are these media organizations that I know by all means when I tune into them, or I read them, or I watch them, I can get the truth about what's going on. I can have informed decisions. When we look at what the observer missions in particular, and perhaps even academics, have said about past media performances in our elections, and like I said, this is the 9th time we're going, so there's plenty of evidence. You see that the reviews are mixed. And I want to controversially, because of the tone that was set about the problems with the media, but I want to controversially say that when you look at it, those reports, you see that the reports indicate that the media are improving on how they report, they cover elections. And again, you have to remember that the elections are covered from now, even before now, right to the polling day and afterwards. So it's a long process. We don't have a defined campaign season. So we can safely conclude that the media is already doing their job. And you see that they have been praised for providing access to contenders, including minor parties. Sometimes there are disputes, but minor parties, minor candidates do get a voice in the media, do get access to media, even though sometimes the coverage is dominated by the two dominant parties, NPP and NDC. I mean, and there will always be, again, a clamor for, I haven't been given enough visibility. The incumbents are going to exploit the power of incumbency. But we can see a lot of progress has been made, particularly commending GBC, because at the beginning of the democratic process, we criticized a lot the state owned media for pandering to the incumbent. Now we see a balance out. That's good, and we need to continue to build on that. They provide civic education and all of that, and of course they note how they sometimes flag and report on what may be going wrong. And so they've been very flattering. Since I don't have a lot of time, I will, however, talk about the negative as well. The extreme polarization and partisanship that some media organizations display is still a cause for concern, okay? The good thing about it is that we have what, in my mind, I consider other more credible, stronger voices, and I'm not pandering to Joy, certainly one of the national media, that can counter some of these more polarized partisan voices. Except, of course, when people go into their echo chambers, they are not listening to people that don't confirm their own biases. That's another thing. We know that the Media Foundation for West Africa conducts monitoring of media during election times for language, and has called out persistently strong language, personal attacks, and again, some of these observer reports know that as well, blurring out some, blurring of editorial lines between, opinion and fact, poor fact checking, and I'm happy that Caroline Anipa is on this panel because she probably can expand a little bit on that, in factual reporting and the lack of depth and examination of issues, etc. So again, we know that they find that a problem. Now, what should we be doing? I think that the EU, for example, and Cordeo, for example, in their last report, noted that, there was still a lack, even though they praised the media, there was still a lack of enforcement of media journalistic standards. But importantly also, the appropriate authority to empower regulatory bodies to sanction this breach of standards. Abusive language in the media, for example, sometimes fake news and misinformation, media bias, and all of that. Now, we seem not to be able to have the kind of media regulation framework that will respect the freedom of the media and at the same time be able to encourage better standards, okay? And if that continues, you will see even greater danger of outside forces supported by citizens saying, this is too much. Let us curb some of the media's powers, and that's dangerous. And of course, they'll curb it through the kinds of legislation we don't want to see. Remember that in some countries, they have an internet blackout during election days, election periods, and we think that's not justified. We had memories of that in the past. It didn't come to fruition, but I think that it's a real danger of the new challenge of social media, of disinformation. Think about even the US's experience and the fact that post the elections that brought President Trump into power in 2016, they found that there was a lot of online activity by foreign actors that interfered in the elections and probably produced those kind of outcomes that the Americans had to grapple with and are still grappling with it. So it's a bit of a problem for us. Whilst we want to celebrate the fact that people can mobilize digital media in elections to extend and broaden our knowledge and information, and candidates also, all of the wonderful things. There's also that negative side.
All right.
And compounded by the fact that our digital media literacy rate is low. So am I out of time?
Yes, I think you do. And,
or do I have 1 minute to wrap up?
You could go ahead, please. We wanted to ask you a question, myself and Emefa, and give you just 1 minute each to respond to them.
Okay, so do you want to ask the question now, or do you want me to finish my submission?
Please finish in a minute.
Okay, so in a minute, I'd like to say that one of the ways in which we need to improve the media's credibility is to support them to fact check and verify. It's imperative in these days of social media, and sometimes in the haste of publishing, a lot of traditional media people just go online. I like to think of traditional media as a place where if I hear something on social media, I'll go and verify on traditional media. So it's important that traditional media keeps their quality control role. It's important that we remind journalists of the professional codes and standards. GJA has guidelines, NMC has guidelines, GIBA has guidelines, so that the media can set an agenda for nonviolent and constructive quality elections, act as better gatekeepers by sifting the chaff from the corn, act as vehicles through which peace dialogue and messages can be amplified, and finally, telling the truth, investigating the hidden, explaining the background, presenting the facts, giving us better analysis so that as voters we can make informed decisions. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much. We have very limited time, but we still cannot let you go without these two questions, one from me and one from Emefa. And I was privileged to be on the high-level panel at the Ambassador to Germany's residence on the eve of the World Press Freedom Day. And you shared in the concern expressed by Sir Sam Jonah about his doubts about the media's ability to do a good job to ensure credible and peaceful elections. You have concerns also about self-censorship. Yet, do I hear you say we have 747 radio station licenses, although we have 550 who are in operation. We have 175 for 4 TV stations. Their job is to reflect the society. If the parties in the elections are throwing vitriol and they are simply reflecting it, are you asking that they should self-censor?
No, Samson, I'm not asking that they should self-censor. I'm asking that they moderate those. Sometimes I have to say the media themselves empanel people because they want that kind of sensational thing. That's an issue. So how the media empanels people so that in your programs you don't have that vitriol is one. Yes, you can decide that some things that our politicians say are not fit to air, and I'm not going to give them my platform to do that. So it's not self-censorship. Right. Self-censorship is when you have to write or cover or do things in order to advance a larger public good. You don't do it. Okay?
Well, I get the sense that in spite of the fears...
vitriol doesn't help.
Okay. Listening to you, even though that you still have fears, I see that at least you have some hope still in the media. But I want to find out, at least you made reference to the Media Foundation for West Africa calling out media, at least during political season, amongst others. Over the period, would you say that it's been deterrent enough? Has it helped improve the situation? Calling out bad media?
I think that, and I wish Media Foundation for West Africa were on the panel to confirm this, but I think that it has helped. It is a deterrent, particularly for certain, you see, there are two people who are at fault here. Both the politicians say the inappropriate things that is carried in the media and the media that carries it. And I think that the Media Foundation's program acts as a sort of a check. It doesn't mean that it will completely eliminate it. But in the course of the season, as they continue to highlight and expose those that are particularly egregious, you see that those characters sort of get out of the media limelight. So really, they may do it on other platforms, but they don't do it through the media. They don't use the media, or they reduce the way they use the media in that manner. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Audrey Gajepo, and keep training us the way you do so that we will be responsible and play our part in ensuring that our country develops. Thank you so very much. Emefa.
Well, go on to our next speaker.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Prof. Our next speaker for today is Bishop Dr. Susan Nti. She's the COO and Head of Legal at Action Chapel International. She's held various roles at Action since 1989, including Administrator, UK Financial Controller, UK Charity Trustee, former Acting Chief of Staff to the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams. She was ordained as a pastor in 2001, consecrated as a bishop in 2020. She has decades of experience in pastoral ministry as the founder of On Eagle's Wings Ministries and Church, Milton Keynes Bible College, and itinerant minister to Netherlands, Austria, Sweden, Uganda, and Ghana, and making an impact for the United Kingdom of God online. Now, Susan trained as a lawyer in the UK with her expertise spanning a significant number of different subject areas, including a postgraduate degree in business law, in management, education, and a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree in theological studies. Susan has stood as a European elections candidate and national parliamentary candidate in the UK for the Christian People's Alliance and as the Labour local elections candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Bishop Dr. Susan Nti, our next speaker. Unfortunately, we've just lost Bishop Dr. Susan Nti there on Zoom and technical challenges, but definitely we'll get to resolve that shortly and bring our next speaker to you.
Great. And this is your Joy Change Speaker Series. And we're looking at ensuring credible elections, the role of the media. The Constitution in Chapter 12, particularly in Article 162, Clause 5, entrusts such onerous responsibility on the media. And that has earned the media the tag, the fourth estate of the realm, the fourth power in the realm. Are we using that power well? Whilst we wait for Susan, maybe we should get to Sheikh Armiel Shaibu. Sheikh Armiel Shaibu is a spokesperson of the National Chief Imam, second Vice President of the West African Election Observers Network, and the Vice Chairman to the Board of Trustees of the Friends of Mental Health. He's a member of the Board of Directors of Afro-Arab Financial Company, the Faith Project of the Catholic Secretariat, and Ghana Integrity Initiative. He also serves on the advisory board of CODEO. He's co-chaired CODEO, Board of Trustees of the Ghana Association of Muslim Professionals, Ghana and Turkey, Development Corporation, and the TVET, advocacy team of the vocational training for females of the Presbyterian Church. Yes, I'm talking about a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And I was privileged to sit in his class in the Religious Studies Department of the University of Ghana. Sheikh Armiel Shaibu, thank you very much for joining us. What do you think it is that the media must do to ensure credible and peaceful elections in these high-stakes elections? Please unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And let me say good morning to you and good morning to all your respected viewers across the world, and good morning also to the members of the panel, very erudite people, very well-respected people that I have associated with. And thank you so much for bringing me on board. And then also, I want to thank the chairman of the Peace Council who asked me to represent him on this very important discussion. Samson, the subject that we are dealing with is so critical at a time when our 2024 election is approaching and concerns are being raised about the issue of credible election and what credible elections means to our democracy, or lack of credible elections also means to the diminishing of our democratic gains. So it's a matter of national importance, and indeed, the media must be seen to play a critical role, because the media fundamental role, as we have all been told, is for them to educate, to inform, and to entertain. Now, in performing this role, the media, instead of informing, can misinform. The media, instead of educating, can miseducate. The media, instead of entertaining, in fact, can cause confusion. So we don't even get the benefit or the circumstance under which we can be beneficiaries of entertainment. And we have seen this happening in other parts of the world. And so it's really, really an important subject that you have decided to discuss today. Elections that are flawed or are perceived to be flawed can cause confusion, and sometimes, rather than enhancing democracy, can destroy democracy. And across the world, and particularly in Africa, rejected electoral outcomes or disputed election results have been at the root of political tension, have caused political violence, and has caused political instability. And neighboring countries to our nation give us such good examples. I mean, we are not far away from Ivory Coast and what they suffered. We are not far away from Sierra Leone and what happened to them. And so in any case where we have had election results being disputed because there is suspicion about the credibility of it, and in a situation where election results are being rejected, then you are likely to see some of the things that is happening, which is most unfortunate. And in Ghana, we have had our own experience. In 2016, we had a whole 8-month-long election disputation in the court that dragged us back, because the time that we could use for doing something better and the resources that we spent were all spent for 8 months, only for us to retain the one who won the election in power. And the death-ended election in 2020, we had to suffer the same thing. We're living an aspect of it which still lingers in our mind, especially with those who are in the political contestation, thinking that the judiciary is perceived to be not to be that impartial enough. So there's so much doubt about what is happening across. And all these things do really bring us to a state where, even as the 2024 election approaches, there's so much trepidation, so much worry, anxiety, and fear as to what is going to happen, particularly because this year's election comes with its own uniqueness. One, the determination of the incumbent to retain power in what has become the slogan, breaking the 8. Second, the unquenchable thirst of the opposition led by a former president to also now come back to power is also another challenge. The growing mistrust and lack of confidence in state institutions that have something to do with our electoral processes is also an issue. And here I'm talking about the perception about the judiciary, the perception about the police, the perception about the the Ghana Armed Forces and the role they play in ensuring electoral security. All these things have added to really heighten the situation of suspicion. And indeed, even the Electoral Commission itself is not free from the suspicion that we are talking about. So given the circumstance, and let me add also that the fact that because there is mistrust or wrong perception about the judiciary, for example, the largest opposition has declared publicly that we will not go back to court. So if you put all these things together, then the issue of ensuring that we have a credible election is something of national interest that we must all put our hands together. And this is where we see the role of the media. If the media ceases to play its role as expected, then there will be those who will contribute to the confusion. And I associate with the point that have been made earlier on by my good sister, Professor Audrey, about one, the type of discussion and the content of discussion that we do in some of the media stations. For example, if there's a subject matter to be discussed which is of national interest, is it always the case that you pitch together on the same platform two members of the diametrically opposed political parties who have completely different and diametrically opposed, what do you call it, viewpoints? And indeed, in the way they express the viewpoint, it is supposed to do it in a competitive manner in order to destroy or to outperform the other, not to discuss genuinely that which answers to the needs of the time and that which also promotes our national cohesion, our deepening our democracy, and enhancing our peace. Like you have been doing, bringing all of us together, people who are mature, who are nation-spirited, who are well-educated, well-informed, who have a sense of ethics and a sense of appropriateness, sense of propriety. These people have been lined up so that we can share our opinion. But contrary to this, you find in many of the media stations where always it is the case to bring the two dominant opposing political parties, and then the tone of the discussion, the content, the personal attacks, the effusions that they exude against each other sends the wrong signal to the uninformed person who is a grassroots political activist who does not even appreciate the issue very well. And yet, these are the issues and the way that we discuss them, and then we go on, creating more of the confusion. So that's one of the area of the challenges that we think that the media can do something about, so that all the time we bring the right people with the right frame of mind who will be able to, in a more dialogue approach, present alternative ideas and views that seeks to promote national cohesion, and also so that will save us from the national division that we are all experiencing. I mean, secondly, the media can also seek the correct information. For example, the National Peace Council has designed a guidelines for intemperate language and hate speech. The content of this book, we expect that the media, regardless which political party they belong to, can pick on this material and from time to time discuss page by page and topic by topic the various issues that we need to be conscious about, so that we don't use the media to cause more division, particularly the issue that surrounds ethnicity. If the media gives chance for somebody who wants to say something derogatory about a certain ethnic community or tribal community, and that media house allows that to be said, then what is going to happen is that a certain kind of disaffection is going to be created and conflict between two ethnic groups that have lived together in this country for a long time. That is one of the things that I think that the media should guard against. And so in the guidelines to interpret language and hate speech that we have developed, the Peace Council will want to see the media picking this and making sure that the public is well educated on what we all need to do to maintain the peace in the country and use decent language in our media wavelengths. And thirdly, the media should also try to educate the public on the whys of election, especially in the times when we know that monetization has become trendy in how our politicians buy the conscience of electorates. I think that is something that we have not done so much in the media to educate the public about not the how of election, but the why of election. Because I understand election to be when you vote, it is your sovereignty that you pass on to another person who seeks your mandate in order to represent you as a president or as an MP. But for you to really take money for such a person and then to really vote in accordance with a certain demand because certain money has been given to you, in the first place, you set the tone for a corrupt representative. And secondly, it means that we have no interest in the type of person we want to become our president or the type of person we want to become our MP because we have sold our conscience. This understanding of the fact that when you vote, it is your mandate, which is God-given, which a trust that you have, which you are passing on to another person, whose request from you is to pass on this mandate so he can give you the service that as a nation we need. This, I think that we have not done so much of this, but we have also been part of the fray, particularly in an era of media proliferation. The social media is awash with some of those things. These are things that we think that the media should be able to do. The media organizations should really look at what are the threats to our peace and what are the things that we can do to enhance credibility of election. When we say credibility of election, what are we talking about? How does the public appreciate what a credible election means? Is it about public trust in the outcome of election? In which case, all institutions that have something related to the elections need to be examined. Transparency with respect to how they are doing their work. All these things are things that the media should help in ensuring accountability, in ensuring inclusiveness, in ensuring fairness, ensuring peace, indeed, ensuring that even in the midst of competitiveness, there is fair ground and fair coverage of any election competitor who needs also to sell his message for everyone to really understand. The media needs to collaborate closely with the Electoral Commission to understand the rules that they have set and be able to assist where it is relevant for them to use their platforms to ensure that the rules that have been set by the EC, as long as they are all approved, especially by the IPAC, are something that the public need to be well educated on. And I'm sure that if we are able to do these, then we can see really the role of the media as an indispensable component of our democratic process, and one that we cannot dispense of, and one that plays a very critical role that we must all appreciate. Anything apart from this will mean that we are deviating from our traditional role and are deviating from the objectives of the media. That is, as I said earlier on, once you fail to inform and still you are an operation, then you can misinform, or you can disinform, or you can miseducate, and in miseducating, you misguide the people and help them to also do things that are wrong, that set our country on the path to confusion, on the path to political instability, on the path to post-election violence, as we witnessed during the 2020 elections. Indeed, the scenario of 2020 elections and what happened in the aftermath of it are fresh in our minds. That's why the National Peace Council, in the immediate aftermath of the election, had to organize a whole retreat for all stakeholders, at which the role of the media was also highlighted in the way that I have mentioned. So the National Peace Council is happy with this kind of platform, and we want to encourage the media to do some introspection. In fact, the state media, the non-state media, the political media, the partisan media, all of us must come together and understand that we have only one Ghana. And once we slip into violence, when we cross the borders of our country, we are no more citizens of Ghana, we are called refugees. It's a whole national assignment, and to promote credible election is a collective responsibility.
All right.
The election management body, the media, the security, the CSOs, and all of us. But in this particular context, we are settling on the media. And I think that the media has a critical role to play. So this is the bit that I can say with respect to how I feel about the work of the media in the approach of the 2024 general elections.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. And we have two questions for you. You speak about pitching the two major political parties on sensitive election issues. The media sees that often as meeting the requirements of fairness and balance in their discussions that they hold. But my substantive question is, CDD and its partners, Kodeo included, have just finished organizing what could be termed as responsible election reporting training seminars for journalists selected across the country ahead of the elections. Should the Peace Council not be the one spearheading such, encounters with journalists, rather than wait to react and correct when sometimes the correction may be too late in the day after the trouble has been caused?
Thank you so much. Samson, you are aware that in almost all the engagements that we have undertaken with the Office of the Chief Justice, with the CDS, with the IGP, with the political parties' communicators, with the Council of Elders of the political parties, and all those that I can list. In all these, and indeed in the last one that we participated at Pediasi, the event at which we were able to get the NDC to decide to go back to IPAC. All these things, we have been able to really draw the media into it for them to see what we are doing. But as I speak to you now, I think next week or so, in fact, we have planned a training program for the media, particularly, and the subject of that media engagement is going to be on the guidelines on intemperate language and hate speech. Because we think that in this season, that is what we must do. I think it has been a concern for us, not today. Without the politics of it, I think I will give credit to former President Atta Mills, who in the aftermath of election got worried and concerned about the politics of insults. And he invited the Christian clergy at Pediasi, after which he invited the Muslim scholars at Pediasi. I happen to be one of those who represented the Muslims to make a presentation. Since then, I'm yet to see any political leader who has expressed worry about how young politicians have reduced politics into a space for insults, disrespect for the elderly, and also raising tension. So now that we are going to do this, we are expecting that when we call the media and they come and understand and appreciate what it means for us to guard against hate speech, then I'm sure if they want to do journalism of conscience, journalism of ethics, journalism of morality, journalism of national service, journalism of having the heart at heart, the development of our country.
All right.
Every single journalist, whether you belong to NDC or MPP or any other party, have this at your heart. Now, so next week is one that we are going to do And hopefully we are able to get the journalists to now probably look at their approach for a better.
I was also concerned about the collaboration between the Peace Council and the media. But really, since we're talking about fears that have been expressed by previous speakers, you represent some key institutions, at least the Peace Council, Codeo, and then also the Chief Imam's Office. Are you also entertaining such fears, at least from the Peace Council point of view, and then also from the Chief Imam's point of view? Are you concerned or you have fears about the fact that the media will not be able to deliver an unbiased and professional coverage of the elections?
I think that we would be unfair. We'll be unfair to the media if we give an impression that the media has failed completely or the media is not doing well. I mean, we have lived in this country across political regimes and across political cycles. We are all here, and we have seen how some of the media stations have done very well. And not to flatter you, I think that the Joy News, for example, is one of such very credible stations. The GTV is one such stations that we must all mention. But the fact is that there are politically based media houses or television stations or FM stations. For them, it is doing the bidding or the agenda of the of that politician who set that media house, because probably we have not been able to do our due diligence very well. And we have hidden behind the right to establish media stations, so we are unable to identify the political agenda and inclination of the one who established it. So these people are there, and for them, the issue they are dealing with is not so much about the national interest. It's about promoting the interest. And for such people, they give us a sense of worry. They give us cause for trepidation. They set us on a tone for anxiety. Indeed, like I have said, as the election approaches, we are not very confident in our hearts, because we think such type of media houses, if they are not controlled, they can really set the country apart. And so we are not hopeless, but we think that we are talking about our own reality, and hoping that when the opportunity comes, we'll be able to really come face to face with tech media practitioners and probably draw their attention to the fact that it is a national service we are all into, and the cohesion of our country and the deepening of our democracy is of priority to us, and we can call on them to look at how they can do it in a proper way.
Sheikh Aremia Shaibu, we are grateful for that change of speaking there today here on Newsfile Live on Joy 99.7 FM. We are on the Joy News channel. We are on myjoyonline.com and affiliates across the country. And I'm sure we'll go through our sponsors, Samson, and then we can take a
right. And
break,
as always, Newsfile is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance. Dial 165* on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks. It's strong. It's tough. Flamingo Paints. Simply superior. DBS Industries Limited, roofing, Papa Fie. And Emefa, Sheikh Aremia Shaibu spoke about if we don't control certain media, and that brings sharply into question what the Constitution disallows. I don't know. You want to say something in a minute about that before we take our break?
Well,
controlling certain media?
Yeah, what he's saying is profoundly important, because while we want the media must be independent. That is the ambition of the 1992 Constitution. But what's the reality on the ground? So what we've seen is that previously, where the state controlled what constituted the Ghana media, it was controlled. Now we want standards to be set by the regulator, which should be the manner in which it's not control, but the regulation must go.
Okay.
But in reality, he made mention of the fact that politicians, when, I've read somewhere that about a third of all our radio stations are owned by politicians, especially members of parliament.
Yes.
They do not own them to make them independent. They own them to control them, to do their bidding. So that's the kind of thing the Sheikh was talking about.
All right.
And I think we will examine it in a bit more detail.
Thank you very much, Nana Jan Apinting, former chair of the National Media Commission, and he's a consultant in the media industry. He's been training journalists, and I've been privileged to join some of those occasions where he gives platinum training to journalists. We'll be right back.
It's a Joy Change Speaker Series, and we're ensuring a credible elections, the role of the media. And you're welcome back. And it's time to bring in our next speaker for today, Bishop Dr. Suzanne. I've been introducing her earlier. She's the COO and head of Legal Action Chapel International. If you're ready, please unmute and take us away. You have the next 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a great honor and privilege to be given this platform. I hope you can see. Yeah, right. Great honor to be given this platform with such authoritative figures in the media space. Jana Pinton, who I believe was a teacher at my former alma mater, Aburi, for a short period. Professor Audrey Gajipo, and Sheikh Shebu, and all those that are coming on. And it's great to hear such well set out remarks, thoughts, views, opinions about the role of the media in ensuring credible elections. The media is doing a great job, but as a Ghanaian who spent a lot of time in the diaspora over 35 years, lived outside the country and coming back, there are certain things that make my heart bleed about some of the challenges that we have to face as a young democracy. And I say young democracy, not because we are young in the sense of just being independent, but in the sense of finding our feet and finding out who we are as a nation. So I'm here representing the Crusaders Against Corruption, of which I'm the chairperson. And we are a citizen-led anti-corruption and good governance civil society organization. And we provide anti-corruption and good governance public advocacy, public advice to decision makers, public anti-corruption education, and support to improve the lives of our citizens in Ghana. Our public service administration, government institutions, and we are very concerned about the things that will impact on the growth and the health of the development of democracy in our nation, Ghana. And I'm thankful for the submissions that have been made before me, and I think a lot of what I'm going to say has already been said. The upcoming elections in December is not just a routine exercise in democracy, but it is a defining moment for our nation, and the integrity of the elections will shape the future of Ghana and determine the course of our governance for years to come. And it's imperative that as citizens and as a society, we stand united in our commitment to upholding the sanctity of the electoral process. The dream of our 1992 Constitution is media pluralism, and we're not there yet. Yes, we have left, but I think the idea and what was envisioned by our 1992 Constitution is not there yet. It's not there yet. It's about guaranteeing the freedom and independence of the media and prohibiting censorship, responsibility of state-owned media. They shall afford fair opportunities and facilities for the presentation of divergent views and dissenting, views. So at the heart of ensuring credible elections is the role of the media, and it serves as the fourth estate, a vital pillar of democracy that has the power to inform, educate, and empower the electorate. And a lot of the submissions, what Sheikh Shebu was sharing is, are we really empowering our citizens? Is that what we're actually doing? Are we informing them? Are we educating them? And are we empowering them? In a democracy, the media plays a dual role as a watchdog, holding those in power accountable, and as a conduit for the public to access information and make informed decisions. You know, in the context of elections, the media plays a multifaceted role in safeguarding the democratic process. Is that what we're doing? They are responsible for ensuring fair and equal coverage of all candidates, providing a platform for diverse voices to be heard, and scrutinizing the conduct of political parties and candidates to prevent malpractice. Is that what the media is doing? So as we look ahead to the elections, it's crucial that we address the challenges and the threats that can undermine the credibility of the process. And, you know, it's pivotal. The media is pivotal in promoting transparency, accountability, and integrity. Transparency, accountability, and integrity in the electoral process. And we commend, you know, the journalists and the reporters who work tirelessly to uphold these principles of truth and impartiality, often in the face of threats and challenges, which we've heard about today to some extent. You know, I was listening to the previous recording that was done by the Joy Change group, and they talked about in that, I think it was Dr. Abna Yeboah Benin, head of Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana, talked about media plurality and the fact that we need to ensure the public are exposed to a range of different opinions, views, the right to reply, the voice of all to be heard, opportunity for our development to be discussed without fear, practitioners to get better working conditions, jobs, information from a variety of sources. But then the three things that she talked about, which, you know, has been mentioned here on the platform by Professor Gajepo, by Sheikh Shebu, by the clip from Sam Jonah, and I believe there was some other mentions by, I think, Mr. Jan Apinting. But she talked about the political capture. So we do have challenges in the country. Political capture, you know, a lot of political voices in the media. And in 2018, a third of the Ghana media was owned by highly politically engaged persons. And I got this from the information that was given to us in that Newsfile. A third. So which means that we have a skewed, or we have some issues when it comes to transparent, accountable, and integrity in our reporting because of the interests that other people have within the media. So other voices are drowned out. So a lot of the content tends to be dealing with partisan politics, which political colors and voices on those platforms are colored, as it were. So sometimes you find, as a diasporan, as a person living in Ghana, you just turn to other external media stations because you feel that you will get a better coverage, non-biased, unbiased coverage outside the country rather than in your own country. So you tune into other stations rather than our own Ghanaian stations. And then she talked in that session about media empire building. About 87% of the media platforms or media frequencies owned by 4 dominant groups, which can influence the opinion shaping and information disseminating. So there are these mega issues that we need to deal with, like political capture, media empire building, geographical diversity issues where people are not actually getting the information that they need to make the decisions in the areas that they are in. They are getting information that does not relate to them, and we need to make sure that the information and the content is specific and appropriate for those that actually are listening to the stations. And then another thing that she talked about, which was interesting, was the freedom, press freedom over the landscape. And, you know, we have seen a lot of violations, and I think Sheikh Shaibu mentioned that, a lot of violations on a scale and severity that defy the reputation of a democratic model of media and elections and journalism that we require in West Africa. Journalists face risks of arrest, detention, torture from state agencies like the police, military, secret service, political operatives of political parties, with security agents being the worst perpetrator of violations against journalists. And, you know, there's also, there was some research carried out by the, I'm trying to get the, okay, it is the article published in the International Human Rights Day 2022, globally celebrated under the theme Dignity, Freedom and Justice for All. And the piece was put together by Muhid Said, Program Manager for Freedom of Expression at the Media Foundation for West Africa, and Philip Tay Agbovi of the MFWA's 2022 New Generation Investigative Journalism Fellowship, with the support of the Czech Republic in Ghana. So they talked about the press freedom violations recorded in Ghana, and it was just for a short period, January 2021 to September 2022, and they talked about the fact, the type of perpetrators, number of violations, 20, security agents, state public officials, 1 violation, the court, 2, political party affiliates, 3, individuals, 1, organized groups, 3. You know, so we need to watch what is happening in our country in terms of violations against media personnel for reporting what they should be reporting to the people of Ghana, to the citizens of Ghana, so that we can make the right decisions concerning the how we vote. And, you know, I liked the contribution by Sheikh Shaibu about the fact that it's not how we vote, but why we vote. And this mandate that we have as a God-given citizen of this country, that we should have that right to vote, and we should have the right information to make informed decisions. We shouldn't treat people as if they are semi-literate or illiterate, and we shouldn't be buying votes. That is a criminal offense. Vote buying is a criminal offense. We need these issues to be dealt with, and, you know, not just, you know, the elephant in the room. Nobody's talking about it, and this compromises the independence of the media and the impartiality of the media. So I want to just end with a few thoughts about what the media has the responsibility to do, and Professor Gajipo also talked about this, but to provide accurate and unbiased information about candidates, parties, and issues. You know, and sometimes I've even watched other external media, and I send a message to Sky. Why is your presenter presenting as if she's been paid by this party or that party? So, you know, and what you won't believe it, but the presenter, they changed their attitude and they stopped being critical of one side against the other. But those are the kind of issues that we need to deal with. Provide accurate and unbiased information about candidates, parties, and issues. Offer platforms for debate and discussion. And I hear this, what Sheikh said about the adversarial approach of hustings and presentations and pitting one against the other. And, you know, it ends up in a shouting match, insulting each other. That's not the way a democracy should work. And, you know, some of the colonial behavior that we have brought into our system in Ghana, our cultural system, that's not how, exactly what he said, that is not how you would talk to somebody who is older than you. You are disrespectful. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. It's the tone and how you say it, not what you say. And we have brought in views and traits that are not cultural to us, and we need to watch that. Our media has the responsibility to investigate and expose electoral irregularities, corruption, and malpractices, so that we don't just be getting those kind of things on social media because it is not being aired in public. They need to promote fact-checking, verification of information to combat disinformation and misinformation. They need to encourage voter education and registration. That is the key thing. Voter registration. The last elections in Ejisu, where they were voting for the MP, it was 49% voter turnout. What about that 51% that abstained, disenfranchised? Maybe they didn't even know what was going on in that town. Maybe it was just asymmetrical information. Just a few people were given the information and others didn't know what was happening and didn't know the importance of them because they hadn't been presented with the facts so that they could make an informed decision. And we need to stop treating adults in our country as if they are backward, you know? Just because I don't speak Twi or I don't speak Hausa or I don't speak Ewe doesn't mean I'm less intelligent because I speak English. A lot of people speak their local languages and are more intelligent than the ones who speak English. And sometimes we need to watch how we present our own people to the world, to the globe, treating people as if they have nothing to say because they don't speak good English. You know, we need to watch those kind of things. Even and as we are coming up to elections, we need to encourage voter education, registration, empower citizens to exercise their franchise, foster public discourse on critical issues, facilitating informed decision-making. You need to give people the information. And there are so many ways that the media can do it. They can do it in plays. They can do it in role plays. They can do it in training sessions, educating the masses, in media programs. In the UK, that's how they train the electorate, the archers. You know, just basic drama programs, teaching them how to go to the ballot box, teaching them how to vote, etc. We need to bring it, make elections accessible to our people. We need to hold political leaders accountable for their actions and promises, collaborate with election management bodies to promote electoral integrity, amplify marginalized voices, ensuring inclusive representation, and continuously self-reflect and improve the practices of the media, maintaining high standards of professionalism and ethics. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bishop Dr. Suzanne Nti there. She's the CEO and head of Legal Action Chapel International and head of school, Dominion Christian Academy. And I was particularly interested in the call to Sky News, and there was a change in the presenters. I'm wondering if she had cause to do so in Ghana before. Dr. Suzanne, have you had cause to do so in Ghana before?
It should be done.
Yes.
And it helps.
It should be done.
And that's a lot to reflect on.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Suzanne Nti. Nti, thank you so very much for that. Now, let's get to our guest in the studio, Nana Kwesi Jana Pinting. He's a consultant in communication, media, and culture. Nana was also the former chairman of the National Media Commission. He's been president of the African Communication Regulators Network. He was one-time president of the Ghana Association of Writers. He is the Apejahene of Achim Eti. Thank you so very much. In fact, presently, he's writing to guide election reporting by journalists.
Thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to sit in and listen to such interesting and elevating contributions by previous speakers. So basically, we started with the presentation by Sir Sam Jonah, and in a way, it appears to create a pessimistic scenario. However, I don't think that is how we should look at it. And I say this because my friend Professor Odrigajekpo started by, saying she is an optimist in that sense. And I think we all are. And we must agree with her analysis that this is the 9th election. And if we've gone through the 8 previous ones, with the media being that involved, then it cannot be all doom and gloom. However, the situation is that, as all the previous speakers have identified, the role the media must play during, before, during, and after elections, and all that, we know what we should do. So, what is the concern? The concern is that the challenges that we face, which are mounting by the day, are such that if we do not speak about them and do not find a way to overcome them, we would come to a time when we cannot take it for granted that the media will do what they need to do to get us across the line. And what happens next may be a catastrophe beyond our immediate ability to withhold. So it is clear that we expect the media to provide information in a transparent way, in an independent way, in a way that would empower our citizens to make informed choices. This is our primary role. With regard to elections, we would also expect and hope that the media would promote dialogue between the political actors and citizens, and therefore create understanding of the issues that are at play within the electoral system. Of course, monitoring and exposing electoral malpractices and all the rest of it, those are part of it. Fact-checking is a critical role of the media. But we've come to a point where, even though we know these, we must also look at the challenges. And this is why the point I'm going to make, and I have to make it a priority so that we know where I'm heading towards, is that there is a subset of political journalism known as election journalism. And this is a very specific, targeted way of conducting journalism that would enable our media to focus on what is important in elections. So, for example, in general political reporting, it's exciting to pit the sides against one another. But in election journalism, where we know the goal is to ensure that you have free, fair, transparent elections, and that beyond that, we have a safe society that is not endangered as a result of the elections. So that becomes a very specific way of looking at journalism vis-a-vis elections. And at the end of this, I would make some recommendations. So what has brought this election journalism into sharp relief is that even if you take the last elections between 2020 and now, we have seen the emergence of a very complicated media landscape. Some of it is characterized by some new phenomenon known as post-truth environment. And post-truth is the sum total of the fake news, the disinformation, all those things that have created an atmosphere in which truth is not as important as how people respond to whatever they are presented with. So, for example, you can simply drop in, I think earlier we had a discussion in which there was a picture of somebody presented as that of the chair of the Electoral Commission. You just need something like that, or sometimes you just need a caption, which in truth is a miscaption, somebody to describe something in a way. And what is happening is that people then use that as an affirmation of what they believe in or what they don't believe in. And once they take that posture, it becomes very difficult to dislodge them from it. And so we have seen that the technology, as technology enables us to do various things, the challenges facing us are mounting every year. So if you take the first elections that I think, the 2000 election, I was not living in this country and I followed my joy, and that was our main source. Mm-hmm. It was virtually uncontested. So whatever was presented was basically what in the end held as the fact. Then come to the last election, when even as the tabulation was going on, somebody made a statement like, we are in a commanding lead. Comfortable lead. There was no evidence presented. The media took this and ran with that statement. But trained journalists in election reporting would put that in context and say that this statement has been made, but at that time, these were the facts. The elections officials had reported ABC. So you are not saying, and that answers a question that came earlier, whether we should not report what the political actors say, even if we know them to be contrary to the fact. Because what you want to do is not to suppress what anybody is saying, but if we've trained journalists enough to instinctively know when to caveat it or to put it within context, then what they are saying can be analyzed by citizens, and that's an important process. So when we talk about fact-checking, for example, it is not simply a question of going onto Google or some other search engine to find out whether the thing stated. Context is very important in this sense. And sometimes the historical reporting, what has taken place over a long period of time, if we can recall, which is why in elections reporting or in election journalism, the complex character of the election process is brought to bear. It is not just what is happening today, and it's not just what is happening on election day or even immediately after. It is the whole continuum of the history, the antecedents, and how they are engaging that we must take into consideration. Now, one of the main challenges we face, which has been highlighted already by others, is the ownership structure of the media in this country. It is something we cannot run away from. Probably the most dominant form of media at the moment is radio. And if, as we have heard, we have more than 700 active commercial radio stations in this country, which probably per capita, maybe we are the biggest consumers of radio in the world. And if, as we have heard, 1/3, and my feeling, is just a feeling, is that probably that 1/3 is an underestimate. But if 1/3 of that number is owned by politicians, active politicians, add to that another sizable portion of our media owned by entrepreneurs whose main interest is to use the media to promote their other business. So they are not in this because they love media freedom or in any way, shape, or form are concerned about the integrity of the media, but solely to sell. So it becomes critical. The ownership question becomes very critical. And how do we then get this media landscape in which we know that people have vested interests? And they do not just have these vested interests as individuals, but they ensure that those they control must play the game according to how it would benefit them. And the answer is standards. We know that across the world, different media houses have their own ideological, political positions and interests and all that. But is the standard setting by regulators, by convention, by practice, and by acceptance of our commitment as journalists. This is where the standard setting, the normative process is so critical, so that we know the difference between news and opinion. So that when we are reporting, say, a rally, if at the moment what is happening is that if it's an NDC rally, the MPP press, and there's no other way to describe them, they are MPP press, would say that the numbers were small, and they'll say all the negative things, and we, the public, may not even get to know what was actually said at the rally, because that's not their interest. Their interest is to denigrate the event and take our minds off from whatever may have been said. And vice versa, that's what would happen if there's an MPP rally and the NDC press would ensure that the same negative treatment was given to it. But if we have a standard of news reporting that emphasizes the elements of news values, the truthfulness, the impartiality, and all that which we were taught with our mother's milk, then you distinguish between news and opinion, between opinion and commentary. So, and you make space for it. And at the moment, all these are jumbled so much that in some stations that I don't want to mention, you can hardly tell the difference between news and opinion. And the opinions of the news broadcasters themselves, even as they are giving it, they are giving their own interpretation and all the rest of it. So when we are able to set these standards and show that in news reporting, if the number is 100, it's 100 across for everybody. It's the same like reporting a football match. So once we've trained sports writers, they may support Hearts or Kotoko, but if the match is reported, the report is the same. The goal was scored in the 54th minute. You're not going to say it was scored in the 30th minute because that's what you wish had happened. And then after that, you can use other interviews and all that to establish other opinions. So I'm saying that we need to train, and this is where my proposal is coming in, that we must make sure that, I mean, we can do all the training, and Sheikh Shaibu spoke about the training, the Peace Council will be conducting. We know that there's going to be so many of these trainings, but what is the purpose? We must narrow the training to a point where, at least in all the major media houses, you have at least one person who is acting as the elections journalism person or even ombudsman within that press house, who can call out when something is going amiss. We have to ensure that as somebody pointed out, every year we have the NMC comes up with its code. You have GEBA, you have all these codes, but they are observed more by how do you put it? You know, they are simply not, they are there. But whether anybody takes any notice, we cannot be that sure. But if we know that over this period of time we've trained people who would become our eyes and ears within the media houses, and they take pride in saying that the same way as we've got financial reporters and they are very faithful about what they are doing, business, journalists and all that, we need to train some people not only as political reporters and all that, but as election reporting specialists. And I'm saying this because the objective of the training must be that in the end, the peace that we want to prevail, the fairness that we want to prevail during the election and the peace thereafter will become their objective. So it's not merely to fill the airtime or to fill their space or to make it exciting and make it interesting. All those are part of what the media would do. But they would have a very specific remit and a mandate to ensure that the fairness of the election begins with the campaigns. Are we giving equal time or at least reasonable time for each? Are we ensuring that we are drawing people to the issues? We are calling attention to the issues that matter. Right now, you see what is happening is that we are all railroaded into one issue. So, for example, LGBTQ comes, and for a long time, all other things are neglected, and we all go in that line. During the election, this kind of thing happens often. So you have some, maybe an agenda, maybe not an agenda, but something can happen, and it is the responsibility of the journalists who would have gone through this training to say, hey, let's not lose sight of the following, which are also on the ground. So my point is that, one, the challenges, we cannot run away from the challenges. They include some of the issues and some of the scenarios that have emerged because of technology, because of ownership and all the things that many people have spoken about. But that we cannot just deal with them in a general way. We have to sort of target and narrow the training, and also to make sure that it is not simply people who get trained and forget about the importance of what they are being trained of, but to take it back to their media houses and become the authority, so to speak.
Great.
For
right. So that's a lot to reflect on, but I have one question. You also appear to look at the media concentration dynamics and feel the threat exists even in a formidable way there, where you have more than a third of the 747 radio licenses that have been issued, of the 175 television stations that are in operation, concentrated in the hands of politicians. That actually heightens the threat. But is the solution the broadcasting bill, which has been revised over and again because the politicians refuse to pass it? The broadcasting bill clearly proscribes giving authorization license to a politically exposed person, and even for media owners to be limited in how many media houses you can control in the country.
You know, I'm sure you remember our LI 2224, which went to the
Content Standard Regulation.
Standard Regulation. That we think was in fact even a better fit to meet this challenge. For one thing, we all this, the 1/3 that we talk about, I'm sure if you go to NCA, you won't find their names there. You know, they own them, and everybody. I mean, I did some work with Media Foundation in the Western region, as was And there, I mean, it's known openly which station belongs to which MP, and on their morning show, who cannot be invited to which and all that. In fact, one station was owned by a dead MP. He was dead, but he still owned it. And his tradition ensured that people who were invited to that station...
There's a lot of it in the towns and villages.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is clear. There's something that we haven't even touched on, which one day we should. Do you know the thing they call the loud speakers at lorry parks and all that?
Right.
In one election, when I did some work for Star Ghana, I discovered that political parties pay for them to broadcast. And that is beyond anything the Media Commission may even be aware of. And these loudspeakers are at markets and they just play tapes, offered by the political parties, and then it's free for all. They can say this person killed this and this person's too, and it just goes on and on and on. But limiting ourselves even to what we know in terms of the 1/3 and all that, yes, this poses a grave danger because we know they have acquired these stations not to promote their independence. They own them for a reason. Yeah. But I'm saying that now we don't have the broadcasting bill, we don't have LI 2224, but what we have and what the NMC tries to do is we tried with the LI, which failed. But the thing is, once we are able to establish the standards so that we know, at least within the media houses, through whatever means that we can achieve, that the sanctity of news, I think that is the critical thing.
All right.
So people know that when I'm listening to the news, at least that much, we can all agree would correspond more or less to the facts.
All right.
As an opinion, we know their opinions.
Okay.
But where you cannot even be sure that a report of what somebody has said, and remember that one of the biggest problems we have today is the interface between social media and your traditional media.
Yeah.
That jump from social media to, which happens through WhatsApp and Facebook and all the rest of it, and it quickly jumps and becomes an issue in the main media.
I come quickly on this also, at least, and the issue about ownership structure of the media. And you talked about the fact that most of it is also to promote business. But you also raised the issue about giving equal time to people. And it raises the issue about profit making of the media as well. If most of this is owned by such persons and they're in it also to promote business and for profit making in the end, how are we able then to give that equal time? And then whilst you're at it, the issue about media being paid poorly and then media being abused and unrespected, and then also whether the media simply is a reflection of our society.
You have a loaded question.
Yes, it's loaded, but try and deal with it within 2 minutes for us so that we go. We will return because you are in the studio with us. George Sapon will join us. We'll have a lot more questions.
Okay, so here is the point. When something is paid for and you explain that it is paid for, there's no problem with it. I'll tell you something. Maybe George can, when he comes. There was a time when one day a political party frantically called the media. I think they called George or they called Ambassador Cabral, one of them, and said one party had been given more time, etc. And when they went in, yes, but it was a paid. They had been. This was on GBC, where you had to give equal time and all that according to the agreement. But a business concern had bought the time for this political party. But when we received the message, I think it came from Mr. Hackman Uswajiman. So this was MPP complaining about NDC at the time. But when they went in, they realized that it was paid for, so it was more or less, it wasn't a free time. So there are ways, technical ways to ensure. In the same way as when you take a newspaper, we have a way to do adverts so that nobody will confuse an advert with a news report.
Okay.
Right.
The same can
We'll
be done.
reserve the responses to the
Yeah,
other
to the other
questions
questions,
after we are back from this break.
Okay.
And this has been your Joy Change Speaker Series 7, Ensuring Credible Elections, the Role of the Media. And I'm doing this with my very dear sister, Emefa Apawu. We'll be right back.
This is the Joy Change Speaker Series 7, and we've been hearing from a number of speakers. It's time to bring in Samson. It looks like we're getting to the meat of it, the issue about disinformation and misinformation. And it's time to bring in Caroline Anyenini. She's a media and communication consultant with special expertise in fact-checking and disinformation. She was previously the Deputy Director in charge of the fact-checking, verification and media literacy practice, that's DUBAWA, at the Center for Journalism Innovation and Development. Caroline pioneered DUBAWA in Ghana and led the subsequent expansion of the platform across Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Gambia. She has covered and fact-checked elections in all 5 Anglophone West African countries, trained over 2,000 journalists and other public, supervised and edited several disinformation research and investigations, and led significant reforms at DUBAWA, making it a respected fact-checking organization globally. Let's bring in Caroline Anyenini. If you're ready, please unmute and take it away.
Hi, Emefa and Samson. Good morning to your listeners and viewers. I should say it's a privilege to be here to be talking about the role of the media in ensuring credible elections. I will focus my presentation on the role of the media in stemming the spread of misinformation and disinformation. I will attempt to explain what we mean by misinformation and disinformation, because we've thrown those concepts around a lot today. And then talk about some of the observations we've made over the years with regards to the spread of misinformation by the media and the role that they've played in disseminating false information, and then end with some recommendation. So basically, when we talk about misinformation, we are talking about information that is false, but is shared or spread without the intention to cause harm. And this is where journalists and the media often fall. So we have media sharing false information actually without intending to cause harm. Sometimes it's because they're in a hurry to publish or give us the information that we need, and that's why they do this. The other, which is disinformation, is what has received a lot of attention, and it's actually a lot of a threat, and so we need to focus more on it. Is information that is false and is created intentionally with the intention to cause harm. The World Economic Forum has declared misinformation and disinformation as a top societal problem that we need to focus on in the next 2 years. And in fact, a study by UNESCO in 2023 has identified, a study about the 16 countries heading to the polls in this year has identified that citizens are really worried about the spread of false information as they head to the polls. And so for us in the media and in civil society, we have our work cut out for us. And so we need to do a lot to focus on stemming the spread of false information and ensuring that our citizens do not really feel that this is a threat going into the election. When we talk about the media and then false information, the spread of misinformation and disinformation, we realize that we can focus on 2 aspects. The first being that the media sometimes is the one creating and spreading false information. I should say that when we are talking about the media in this aspect, we are not really, you would find that traditional media aren't really the ones who do this. It's usually the online blogs who sometimes, for various reasons, sometimes political reasons, financial reasons, are the ones that create this kind of false information. The other aspect is when media becomes a target to amplify the spread of false information by bad actors. When you look at the trumpet of amplification of false information, you look at how false information spreads or comes in the public space, you'd realize that it starts very small in one little corner, one person creates a false information, but then they need traditional media to be able to amplify it. They know that traditional media has a lot of credibility, and so you're targeted. One of the previous speakers spoke about the empire-building nature of media that we are seeing recently, and the fact that media, an MFW study has said that media audiences are concentrated in just 4 newsrooms, over 87% of them. So it means that should one false information get onto one of these platforms, a lot of people are going to get access to it. Bad actors are aware of this, and so they take advantage of it and then try to entice or manipulate traditional media to get their false information across to audiences who otherwise would not have access to this information. So over the years, the civil society sector has focused a lot on the work that should be done in the media space. And we've realized that the media in Ghana oftentimes lacks the capacity to even identify, to spot false information and to deal with it. We've had instances where we've trained journalists, and it's surprising that, what you expect them to know, they do not know. And then also we've realized that journalists do not have the capacity to use digital verification tools. A lot of the misinformation these days are from social media, and they are in images or video formats. And then there are digital verification tools that can help us to verify these images or digital videos. But we find that the basic skill to be able to use these tools, the journalists do not have. Some of these tools also aren't free. You would need, to pay a premium to have access to them. You also find that the newsrooms do not have the funding needed to access these tools. Then another reason why the media is complicit in the spread of false information is access to information. In Ghana, and a lot of the rest of the Anglophone countries, we have access to the RTI bill now, law, which we can use to, get information we need in our reportage. However, I think the Media Foundation for West Africa would speak a lot more about this, how they've struggled to get information to verify claims and then in their reports. So it's one of the reasons why when you're reading a news report, you realize that the context that Nana spoke about is lacking, right? And it's also one of the reasons why there are a lot of gaps, and so misinformation will thrive. There's been mention of media ownership as well, and how this breeds and helps in the creation and spread of misinformation and disinformation. So you would be surprised to hear a journalist who is very much aware that information they are putting out on their platform is false, yet they say they can't do anything about it because their owner or the newsroom owner says this must go out, right? And so media ownership plays a role here. Then we have the business model of newsrooms, where a lot of the time, because of the interest of newsrooms to protect their source of funding, they are unable to do much to go beyond the norm and then actually fact check and verify information for the public. So when Sami asked me yesterday to speak today on this subject, I tried to do a little bit of experiment to find out what Meta AI specifically, could tell me about the history of Ghana's media when it comes to the spread of false information. Are there specific trends? So I just typed in Meta AI. If you have WhatsApp, you could try it yourself right now. I just typed, can you please give me examples of misinformation in Ghana's 1919 elections? So it gave me a list of 8 things that they said had happened. Then I went back and then asked them again to give me examples of false information, misinformation, and disinformation that spread in the 1996 elections. Surprisingly, I expected some differences in the response that I was going to get from Meta AI, but I realized that they gave me the same trends or the same things that happened in 1992 as happening in 1996 without any variation in words. It was verbatim, right? And so what am I trying to say here? With AI, a lot of us think that our work is cut out for us. I should say that when they gave me the response, what they thought was the trends of misinformation in 1992 and 96, I asked for the source of information, right? Because I didn't want to come here and then misinform. And I think they gave me 4 articles that they said they had sourced this information from. I took the time to read for all 4 articles, and they made no mention of the trends that I was given. So what is the lesson here? The media going into the elections should be aware that AI, is making our work a lot more easier, but then it also has a tendency to disinform, right? So we need to be very careful how we use artificial intelligence going into the elections. That being the case, when I went back and then read the examples of misinformation and disinformation that they had given me from 92 and 96, I realized that if it's actually the case, I haven't had the time, because I was informed about this just yesterday, I haven't had the time to go back and actually say that these things actually happened in 1992 and 1996. But assuming that it is as Meta AI said, then the issues we are facing today aren't entirely different from what we faced in 1992 and 1996. Some of the previous speakers have spoken about how we've been doing this for so many years, and so some of the issues remain the same. So let me quickly take you to some of the trends of misinformation and disinformation that we see during elections and the roles that the media has played in their spread. The first thing that Meta AI told me, and which we've observed in the civil society space over the years, is that there have been a lot of false claims about candidates' ages, and then fabricated stories about their health. We did see, if you remember, I think most of these false claims were also made when Professor Mills was contesting elections in the early 2000s. For this year and the previous year, we haven't had much about these 2 issues. The third thing that Meta AI told me was about misleading information about party policies that we still see. We saw that in 2024, 2020, and already we are seeing some of that in the media. There are also misinformation and disinformation, which basically try to manipulate people's views and opinions using ethnic and tribal divisive tendencies or comments. For Ghana and other West African countries which have experienced some bit of unrest as a result of ethnic and tribal issues, I think we need to tread carefully where this is concerned. And then also another form of misinformation and disinformation that we see usually during election, on election day specifically, has to do with vote rigging allegations, where we're told that ballot boxes have been snatched, or people are double voting or triple voting. And we have the media amplifying these unsubstantiated claims. And we know that this can have direct consequences for the elections, oftentimes breeding mistrust and then undermining the work of the EC. The same type of misinformation and disinformation that Meta AI told me that we've witnessed in the 92 and 96 elections are false endorsements, where popular political figures or traditional leaders have endorsed certain candidates when in fact they have not. I think that all of us remember from the last elections examples of this. Then there are oftentimes manipulated photographs and videos. For fact checkers and for those of us in the civil society space and the media, we need to pay a lot more attention to this because of the role that, how easy it is for us to relate to images and videos. You know, a lot of our audiences do not read or write English, which most newsrooms transmit in. And so when you use pictures and images, you're able to attract them and they're able to understand what is being said and what they're watching.
Okay.
And so bad actors use them a lot. There have been incidents and reports of newsrooms, including Joy, where photos and videos are circulated and they're purportedly coming from you. Sometimes you call these imposter content. All it has is a logo of Joy and it gives it some credibility.
Okay, Caroline, I think we have a picture like that I'm sure that we can show you so we can quickly wrap up on that. So I'm sure our producers will just put that up at least. Is the picture that Nana has also been referring to?
Yes, so there was this picture that was put up and you will see that there was a reaction to it on the Daily Graphic report online of the December 21, 2021. It's come up again. People are using it. That the EC boss, Jean Mensah, attended an NPP, conference in Kumasi, and you see the picture there. That's not her, but it's circulated in a way that people believe it, and it heightens the tensions. People who have suspicions about the EC's work, it heightens the tensions. And this could also lead to issues of violence, mistrust, and all of that during the elections. What should the media be doing, traditional media be doing, to check these things?
Precisely. And Samson, I think that a lot of the time these come with the logos of very credible newsrooms, including Joy. And what the media will typically do is to put the logo fake news on this and then put it out. But when I see this, I ask myself, what about this image is false? When you do that, when you put such images out, you're really not informing us. Is it the picture of Jean Mensah that is false? Is it the fact that your logo is on it that is false? So we need to go a little more beyond just putting these images out. So what can we do? Some of the previous speakers have actually typed on
in a minute, please.
Sorry?
In a minute.
Please go ahead. Make your your answer in a minute.
Okay. So we've spoken extensively about the need for fact-checking and then the need for trainings. We also need to, as a media, focus some attention on pre-bunking. Before the false information comes out, you need to fill the existing information gap. What are you seeing? What are the potential false informations that will come out? And what should you put out so that when your audiences see the false information, they are already inoculated so that they do not actually believe or trust the false information that is put out there.
Thank you very much. Caroline Anipa there. She's a media and communications consultant. We are grateful that you made time to join us, even though you mentioned that it was on short notice.
Right.
Go on to our next speaker.
Right. So we have George Sappo. He needs no introduction, really. That's a man who is sought after beyond the borders of Africa. And I've had the opportunity of sitting in international programs with him and recognize how much we have that we don't value right here in our country. He heads the Independent National Media Commission, established under the Constitution of Ghana, to ensure free, responsible, and pluralistic media. In this role, he leads efforts to set and monitor media professional standards and coordinate processes for the recruitment and appointment of chief executives and governing boards of the state-owned media in order to insulate them from governmental control. George additionally manages the Commission's complaints and settlement process. And I meet him often at that place because of Joy FM. Trained as a lawyer and a journalist, Mr. Sappon's expertise spans the broad fields of communications law, policy and regulation, development statistics, peace building, and he has something to tell journalists about how to deflect the vitriol. Peace building and governance legislative drafting. He is a Reagan Fellow of the National Endowment for Democracy. Hello, George. Please, let's hear you in the next 10, 15 minutes. And in fact, we have reserved a lot of questions for you.
Thank you very much, and I hope you will keep your questions because you're a better expert on most of the issues. Good morning to you, Emefa, and Nana Jana Penton, and all the brilliant people that I've had the opportunity of listening to. But please permit me to, it's been a difficult morning because I've just been informed that our coordinator in the northern region, Omar Mukhtar, who coordinates our peace building effort, has just died this morning.
Oh, no.
So, please permit me
Omar
a
Mukhtar.
second to commiserate to the family, and we hope that the Lord accepts his soul.
Amen.
To begin with, Samson, I think I would want to start from important remarks that Professor Gadepo and Sheikh Aremeyao made about their observations about GBC and the improvements they are seeing. Why is this necessary? This is the outcome of the silent hand of policy. The things that you don't see but lead to transformation. And within the process of this election, we are going to see the same things happen at the Ghana News Agency, the New Times Corporation, and the Graphic Communications Group. These initiatives are what we sought to achieve in the generality of the media through LI 2224, Content Standards in Electronic Communications, that Nana Jana Penton has just spoken about. So for us at the National Media Commission, when we look at what is going on, we agree that there's reason for concern, but we think there's no reason for panic. Because this is part of the natural evolution of the media systems. And that is why almost a decade ago, we brought in the interventions that we strongly believed would have improved the environment. We are still committed to those processes, and we are going to do a lot of them this year. Permit me once again to pay tribute to the Ministry of Finance that this year is supporting us actively to do this. Special thanks to Ms. Eva Ment, the Chief Director, and the Director of Budget, Mr. Freku, and the leadership of the ministry that have shown so much commitment to supporting us to bring these issues back on the burner and to address them. We believe the media has done very well. We are aware of the threats. We do not feel overwhelmed by them because we know they are part of the natural evolution of the media, and all of us need to just keep our pulse down to address them. So exactly where are we? If you recall, when we passed LI 2224, we were the first in the world to have acknowledged the problems that everybody is talking about in the field of disinformation, in the field of ownership, in the field of media capture and all. So it was 6 months after the Supreme Court of Ghana struck down our law that Germany passed the first network enforcement law, which was based on the same principle of intermediary liability that was the foundation of our law. From the German law emerged the EU-wide legislation on the Digital Services Act and the Digital Marketing Act, which is now almost becoming the global standard. And he just spoke about the UNESCO processes. Anybody who followed the UNESCO Internet for Trust meeting, which is perhaps the biggest meeting within the multilateral forum, and as you imply, I'm very active in the UNESCO processes, currently sitting on the bureau of the IPDC, which is the International Program for the Development of Communications, and perhaps almost all the major UN groups that work on these issues. So we understand what the situation is, and we do not feel overwhelmed. As we speak now, what are the big problems? Nana, Audrey, almost everybody has explained it. First, we've talked about media capture, we've talked about the political manipulations, we've talked about all those issues. What is the foundation of that? The foundation of that is that by policy, when we speak of media freedom, there are two elements that we need to address. Freedom from what and freedom for what? In the case of Ghana, we seem to have adequately addressed the question of freedom from what? What was left was for freedom for what? So those who obtained media channels, what had happened? We had used that freedom to protect the interests of media owners. We have used that to protect the interests of political actors. And even those media that are not influenced by political ownership, Nana has pointed out, there are two areas where people are using the media to protect their businesses. But there are also people who are using media for self-protection against the state. Okay, how do you address all these issues? You address these issues by understanding what is the next nature of the threat. What is going to happen within the next couple of years is that having captured the media, the key media institutions within the ecosystems will become the next target. Trust me, and mark it on the wall. The Ghana Journalists Association, by the next couple of years, will be taken over by the same interest groups, either through influencing their elections in order to secure candidates that they want. You are going to see business interests influencing DJ elections. You are going to see political interest groups influencing DJ elections. If you took the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, because it is owned by the same media owners that you are expressing concerns about, then essentially you can see its alignment, because the ownership is not different from the problem that you are discussing. The other forms of media associations within the ecosystem are going to be subject to the same threats. And ultimately, if we don't protect the space, the Independent National Media Commission, that for now has representation from all constituent bodies, will be the last line of assault for capture. If that happens, that is the state at which one would say the danger has materialized. For now, for as long as the independence of the commission is sustained, there is hope to address the threats that we see. And as we have indicated, within the next couple of weeks, we are going to outline some major engagements. One of them is going to be a major national conference on disinformation, where we would outline the current issues in disinformation. A lot of the things that we've talked about now essentially belong to what we call disinformation 1.0. As we move into disinformation 3.0, the challenges are completely different. And Annie just illustrated some of them to us. Before then, I think Professor Gadgetpo, Nana, and the rest are done. As more and more innovation moves into the networks, the challenge that we are confronted with is going to be channel-based. And that is where the complexity of the matter is moving. This is precisely the reason why in Europe and North America, the challenges and the interventions proposed are seeking to deal with network opacity issues. So if you saw the hearings in Congress in the US about the role of the big platforms, if you followed the US Supreme Court cases of Google and Omni and the rest, the two seminal cases that the Supreme Court just decided, they are all addressing this bigger problem that in the case of Africa hasn't come up for discussions at all, but which is the biggest threat that we face in the next coming election because of the international malign actors. What's our conclusion? Our conclusion, as I have already said, is that these issues are questions for concern, but they provide no reason for panic. All of us are going to work together to address them. And I'm particularly glad that you have boldly opened the discussion through your forum. It is my hope that all of us are going to keep our commitment and keep discussing the issues. Within the next couple of weeks, it seems to me that some clarity is going to emerge on the policy front, which will show the pathways towards addressing all the concerns that the brilliant panelists have expressed. Thank you very much, Samson. And
thank you. Thank you very much indeed, George. And our very first question to you will be looking at a very practical issue where the media stands accused of dealing in publication that heightens tensions ahead of the elections. And these are high-stakes elections. That former President Mahama meets a group of people and tells them that the EC is recruiting returning officers, and that the EC is doing so by seeking the support of ministers and DCEs to bring them people, party apparatchiks, to be recruited as returning officers. The media reports without a search about the fact that this was publicly advertised and that this is almost unthinkable that the EC will be able to do anything like that. How do you stem the tide ahead of the elections?
It is about the standards that Nana just spoke about. It is about the fact-checking that Annie just spoke about. It is about the ethics and responsibility that Audrey spoke about. It is about the moral commitment that the media make to the elections that Sheikh talked about. It is about the public mobilization that Bishop talked about. It is all the ideas that we have shared here, Samson. In short, it is just a simple commitment to professionalism. And professionalism is enforced by regulatory rules. That is where the weakness has been. Nana has spoken about it. Two things are going to happen. Number one is that we are going to support the independent professional journalists who are doing work like yourselves and your media house, teams like City Group, GBC that everybody has commended now. But all of us also need to reach consensus about what to do with the errant fringe that is committed to throwing the society into chaos. It seems to me we've gotten to that point where people will have to be made accountable for their actions.
So obviously we should not be sort of become the conveyor belt for this kind of news or commentary from the key stakeholders unless they give us evidence to show that in fact the EC is recruiting party people from the NPP to be returning officers.
But the question is the media actually taking that responsibility and putting them to strict proof to give us the facts about the things that they say is also the key question.
Even when you don't have the evidence, and that doesn't mean you don't report it. The point is, when you become aware that some falsehood has been put out, your responsibility is to point out that this thing that others have published is false. You see the point? So it's not just
so you should publish, regardless that it will heighten tensions, regardless that it is something that you can easily rubbish and say this is not possible.
Yes, you have to. That is exactly what our role should be. So there are two things. Let us say this information comes out. It is so obvious that it cannot be done. But for the purposes of post-truth that I spoke about, they amplify it, they make it look almost real, including sometimes putting it on letterheads that look genuine and all the rest of it. So our reporters must report that this false information is making the rounds. And it is false. And false because there's no evidence. But if we say that, well, we didn't put it out, and therefore it's not our issue, we are therefore contributing to the thing making the rounds and eventually taking over.
Okay, let me find out from George, though. George, if you're still with us, I'm surprised you're saying that it's not an overwhelming situation in spite of all the fears that have been expressed. Also the fact that the NMC is not actually putting the media on its toes as it ought to. Really, I'm sure you've heard it several times that the NMC is more like a toothless bulldog in this situation. And really, going into those crucial elections, we are wondering, NMC, what really will happen? What will you do differently?
Okay, thank you very much, Emefa. But just before then, if you give me a quick minute to comment on the interaction between Samson and Nana, which I think is very important. I think our responsibility is not about whether we report or we don't report. It is about discovering the truth, as Nana has said, in the post-truth period. Our responsibility is first to examine the claim and what is behind the claim. Nana had earlier said it is not only about the event, what has gone on before and what is likely to follow. And in order to say, this person has said A, B, C, D, the facts on the ground do not sustain the claim. There is no evidence for the claim, and therefore we consider what he has said not sustainable.
Therefore, you don't publish at all?
I think that you have a responsibility to publish, but within that publication is the context of the lie that the person has said. If you have evidence that what the person has said is a lie, you understand? And it adds to the inoculation that Annie just spoke to us about. If you help people to define the inoculation procedures, what is going to happen is that over time, the credibility of the person who's persistently telling lies will be exposed to the point that anytime people hear from him or her, they know the credibility to put on whatever information is coming from them. Now, coming to the question of NMC and what my brother Gilbert Cheta calls the canine metaphor, dog. Mr. Ayebofo has said that he would prefer a barking dog that doesn't bite to a silent dog that goes biting, in reflecting his overall commitment to free expression. I think we are all coming to a certain balance that will require a balancing act between the right to free expression and the accountable media practice. And as we move into the elections, it seems to me that is what we are going to do. Before then, I think that you had noticed that we recently filed a notice of revocation against a radio station that, in our view, was persistently carrying hate speech and irresponsible content. We are not going to relent in these efforts. We have signaled everybody that all of us are going to have to be accountable for our actions as we go into these elections and beyond.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. And Anipa gave us an assignment to check on Meta AI.
Right.
I checked on it, 1996 elections and the issues that came up, misinformation issue, 10 of them. And it looks like they are no different from what we are seeing today, including manipulation of public opinion through disinformation campaigns and then false claims about candidates' qualifications or political affiliations. It goes on.
George, in 30 seconds, what can you share with us about this principle that you have been training journalists? And I was privileged to sit in one of the training you gave about, is it reflecting something, sort of a reconciliatory approach to reporting, so that if one party, made a comment that is potentially, as it were, explosive, the media should rather be engaging Peace Council and other persons rather than engaging these same people and their opponents to be speaking about it.
Thank you very much, Samson. So that is MVP, making peace visible, MPV. And essentially, it is a peace journalism proposition. In traditional journalism, we say that news must be balanced. And so anytime there is an issue, you seek two sides to the conflict. In peace journalism, or let me give an illustration, so that if the matter is between MPP and NDC, the two sides are the MPP and NDC. In peace journalism, we say that the two sides, MPP and NDC, actually represent one side. They are the combatants. On the other side are the peacemakers and the general society who are affected by the conflict that they are pervading. Therefore, when we give both the two of them opportunity to state their case, we also need to give opportunity to the peace builders and the generality of society also to express their concern about what the two sides are doing, which is a more comprehensive approach to journalism and the search for peace. It is our hope that if journalists accepted this proposition, we are going to hear more from the National Peace Council, National Commission for Civic Education, civil society, and thought leaders in the country. We just heard Jonah, so that we can have a comprehensive conversation about the election.
Thank you so very much. And we want to say a very, very happy 91st birthday to Nana Professor SKB Asante. Happy 91st birthday. The Oman Hene of Asante Asokore.
And thankfully, he'll be on the stages right after the change speakers on Newsfile. And it's right here on the Joy News channel. You want to stay for this. And we want to say thank you to all our guests for making this change speakers series a success. And there's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. And Samson, thank you for the opportunity for being here with you on Newsfile.
Right. And Nana Jana Painting will also be unveiling the truth over speed, journalism manual for the digital age on June 27. So please, let's look out for it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.